Take me out to California.
Hi everyone, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Holly and I am a speaker, a self-development coach and a mom of 2 girls. And on this channel, I talk about self-development and positive mindset and how to bounce back after life's challenges. I also share things about my family life and what it's like being a mom and all that kind of good stuff. If you like the things that I talk about, subscribe. Click the bell and give me a like, give me a comment below, all of that good stuff, because it certainly does help to progress the channel and all that kind of things if I know what you guys enjoy and what you don't. Today on the channel, we are going to be discussing feelings. We're going to talk about our feelings, which is nice, isn't it? And the reason I got thinking about this particular side of our feelings that I'm going to talk about today is because yesterday in the UK was the UK general election and people voted who they wanted in power, who we wanted to have as our Prime Minister, and we decided that Boris Johnson, the Conservative Party leader, is going to stay in charge. And the decision for that, the feeling on that in the country seems to be quite polarized. Although voting wise they seem to have had a really good result, I think actually on the street it's very polarized in people's opinions. So yesterday there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of arguments on social media, in person, and I'm okay with that because I think when you feel passionately about something you should speak up. I spoke on one of my previous videos recently about speaking up and about owning who you are and your opinions and your feelings, and that the right people will come. And certainly there is no more obvious place of that than in politics. You know, if you believe in a certain ideology, then you join that particular party and you vote for that particular party, then you're really, you know, you are really putting out there what your opinion is. And so on the flip side of that, people who completely disagree with that point of view are going to have feelings as well. And so yesterday was, I imagine for some households, a real high. For many households there was a real low point yesterday, and I think there felt like a feeling of change was in the air, and there was a lot of talk of young people voting and perhaps voting for a more left-leaning government, and then it didn't happen. And so for many people that was frustrating. Of course, on the other side there are many people that are very happy with the outcome. So we have to look at both sides. Now, the reason I'm talking about feelings today is because I was disappointed yesterday. I am not a fan of Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party, and I've never hidden the fact. If you go through any of my old stuff, you will see that that is my thoughts. But the point of this video isn't that. It's about the feeling of disappointment or sadness or anger or those more negative emotions. And when we have those, so yesterday on Twitter, or was it this morning? Oh my God, when you stay up and you watch the elections, when you watch the results come in, your brain stops functioning. And I was up quite late and I checked very early this morning what the result was. So I'm tired and my brain isn't functioning. But I put something on Twitter and just said, you know, disappointed basically. And a guy, and this isn't a dig at the person who said this at all, it was just it was meant as a nice comment, and it was took as such. But he said, come on Holly, you know, you're the person that reframes things in a positive mindset, let's find the good and that kind of thing. Rightly so, and of course I do that, and of course I'm absolutely fine. However, what I said to him is is the topic that I'd like to discuss, and it's that actually all of those feelings of sadness and anger, disappointment, frustration that many people that watch this may be feeling this morning are valid feelings. They're valid, reasonable feelings to some injustice that you feel has been done, or sadness or disappointment, and they are okay. And this is the same with any kind of thing that we feel has gone wrong in our worlds. If we immediately jump to, I'm okay, I'm fine, I've reframed it, everything's great. Of course, there are times when, yes, you can do that quite quickly, but there are times when you're invested in something, or you have a really disappointing thing happen, like the election, or something really tragic happens, like a death. You can't just spiritually bypass those feelings and jump to the next stage because I think sometimes we need to sit with our emotions. I'm not saying we always have to feel everything full out, but if if you are disappointed, it's okay to feel disappointed. If you lose your job and you feel really sad or angry about that fact, just give yourself a moment to catch your breath. Give yourself a chance to just reassess it. And of course, once you've given yourself a moment to feel disappointed or feel angry or have a cry or whatever else you need to do, then you should reframe, you should look for the good, you should do all the things that I do talk about doing. But I think it's really important that we don't just avoid feelings, that we don't just go, okay, well, I'm gonna go to the gym, I'm gonna go and eat my feelings, that we acknowledge them. I feel like it's a feeling of respect, like you have to respect your own feelings and that it's okay. So last night when I realized the result was coming in favor of the Conservative Party, I was disappointed. I wasn't surprised. I was disappointed. I hope for change. I hope for something more positive, a less angry sort of outcome, and I didn't get that. Now I'm fine and I will be fine, and I have reframed it now, but I needed a moment just to go, okay, here we go, another 5 years of this government, and let's see what that brings. Let's find the good. Now this morning I posted on Instagram about support and connection and love, and how we need to, as people, try and find that connection regardless of our differences. Now that's not bullshit, that's how I feel. And the one thing I do know is that whoever you voted for, and I hope they did vote, but whoever you voted for, that felt important to you. And I know that people vote based on their own interpretation of the world, of their own, because of their own fears, their own desires, their own wants, their own learnings, their own understanding of how things work. Now that doesn't make it necessarily the right decision, but it doesn't make it the wrong decision for you. And I think that's what we need to remember, that those people that have voted opposite to you, whatever that is, it doesn't make them bad people. It just makes their opinion different to yours. And that doesn't mean avoiding, so those of you that have woke up this morning disappointed, it doesn't mean not doing something about that. It doesn't mean not standing for something. It doesn't mean not standing tall and making your voice heard and fighting for injustice and all of that stuff, because that's important. Get boots on the ground and get out there and do something about it. I didn't mean that in an aggressive way. I mean that in a, campaign. Do what you have to do. Prepare for the next election. And also just on a human level, just go and be a decent human being, because regardless of who is in power, nobody is stopping us as human beings connecting with one another, being loving towards each other and all of that good stuff. We can do that whoever is in power, and I think that's really important for us to remember. And aside from the election and that kind of disappointment in life, whatever it is, allow things to come through. So for those of you who don't know this, my husband died in 2017. Obviously that's a horrific, sad, depressing thing to happen, and all manner of emotions can come up when somebody dies, especially when somebody dies untimely, when it's before we would imagine, they're not an old person. There can be many things that come up, including anger. And I've always said, when it comes to grief and loss, you should allow things to just flow. And if you cry, you cry. If you're angry, you're angry. Whatever the feelings that come up, just allow them, And sometimes in grief, people feel guilty about being happy. And I get it, I understand it, but I'm sure your person who has died would not want you to be sad. So whatever feelings come up, just honor that in that moment, and see them almost, they come, they go, that you're almost observing them as emotions, that these feelings are not set in stone, they are not fixed, they're just feelings, and they come and go. And even when they're the really tough feelings like sadness and anger and loss and all of that really tough stuff, and when you're in the midst of it, you feel like they are going to last forever. The one thing that we know is that nothing stays the same forever, not a thing. So allow them to come, feel that emotion, and then start to move yourself forward. But don't avoid any of those emotions completely, because by doing that, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, and you might end up finding that the behaviors that you display by avoiding it altogether might actually, you know, distraction techniques. People go out drinking, they have too much sex, they take drugs, they whatever, and they do things that might be more, they shop, that might be one, you eat more, things that might be distraction techniques. And none of those things necessarily are bad in their own right, depending on your opinions on things. But what I think is important for us to do is just to be careful that we're not squeezing down all of the emotions and then it pops up in other ways, because you just can't avoid it. Sometimes you just have to sit with it. That's why meditation is really good. If you've not tried meditation before, I'll talk a little bit more about meditation on this channel, but meditation is really good because it forces us to sit with our own heads. And when we sit with our own thoughts, sometimes it can be quite scary and like, I did not know I was feeling that right now, but actually it's really important in our healing process. So I'm going to leave it there, but I hope that you took something from this. If you did, please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. If you are feeling disappointed about the election results, then I feel you, I hear you. Sit with it for a moment, have a cup of tea, chat to your friends, and then, you know, just go and be good to somebody. Go and counteract the vitriol that was kind of being bandied around yesterday, and just go and be a decent human being, and then you will feel good about that and you can move forward. I'll speak to you all soon.
Take me out to California.